This week, U.S. stocks dropped 800 points in one day. Today, stocks are bouncing back. So what's causing this volatility? We're talking about that, plus a survey that says most Americans don't have enough money saved for a rainy day. And finally, new numbers showing just how expensive it is to live here in San Diego. Joining us now is Miro Kopik with SDSU and Bottom Line Marketing. Welcome.
Hi, Ebony. How are you?
I'm doing great. So some analysts have said that the stocks dropping was connected to the recession. Others say it's because of the trade war with China. What's causing all of this uncertainty?
Well, there's a lot of confusion, and both are correct. So on the plus side, there's going to be a lot of volatility going forward. On the plus side, you still have a relatively strong economy. You have low unemployment. You have a lot of consumer spending, which is really good. On the downside, yes, number one is the trade war with China. The other thing that happened is the global economy is hurting. Germany announced a contraction for the first time on Wednesday for the last quarter. The UK is in the same shape, and China is also being impacted. Their growth rate is the slowest in 17 years. And finally, what really freaked out the market was that the yield curve, which is that short-term rates generally are lower than long-term rates, switched. That meant that short-term rates were higher than the 10-year Treasury bill rates. When that happens, that's a signal to recession. And Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater, one of the biggest hedge funds in the country, predicted a 40% chance of recession.
Very scary. And speaking of hurting, a new survey found that many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and don't have nearly enough saved for retirement. What's going on when there's other signs of a healthy economy, such as a low unemployment rate?
That could suggest that the wages aren't there. People aren't earning enough, even though there's been wage increases. That the average American, the median income is about $60,000. That has not budged since 2000, basically. 6 in 10 Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 45% of all Americans carry credit card debt. And so you can imagine when you have credit card debt or credit cards, for really good credit scores at 11% interest or 20% or 25% for poor credit scores, that's a big burden on a household. The one thing that's really fascinating about this whole study was that Americans are more preoccupied with what their friends and family are doing in social media. They're so shocked that people seem to be spending a lot of money in these experiences. They're focusing more on what their friends are spending than how they're saving.
That is very interesting. And finally, the San Diego Union Tribune actually crunched some recent numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which found that San Diegans are spending more due to inflation rates. Can you tell us more about that?
San Diego is the third city with the highest inflation rate. So San Francisco has almost a 4% inflation rate, LA 3%, and we're 2.8%. That means, and the national average is just under 2% for the first 6 months of the year. So this is the study. So that means we're spending, not only do we have higher cost of living in general for housing, for gas prices, for all sorts of things, the growth of those products and services is growing at a much faster rate. So this year, rent is up almost 4%, gas is up almost 3%, medical costs for San Diegans is up over 2.5%. So all of this stuff kind of ratchets things up. The inflation rate is a lot less expensive, and even in other parts of the country. So even though the median income in San Diego is $76,000, when you start paying taxes and the increased cost of living in San Diego and these incremental rate of inflation, that's an extra $1,000 a year just in the increase in prices that San Diegans pay.
So I hate to end it on that sour note, but that wraps it up for this week's Friday Business Report. Miro Kopik, thanks so much for your time.
Hopefully better next week.
Yes, hopefully.